Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Your Favorite Game. Ostensibly, it's a discussion between me and some of my friends about what their favorite video game is, so we can open up a dialogue of what's important and what's meaningful and what they recommend other people play. Hopefully you enjoyed this first discussion I'm having with my roommate Brian about the game The Walking Dead Season 1. Thanks, and hopefully you enjoyed the discussion.
Oh.
What's your favorite video game?
I'm gonna have to say, The Walking Dead Season 1 so far, because I haven't played Season 2 or 3.
Okay. So, instantaneously, what are some of the reasons you would choose this game over other games?
Wait, instantaneously? As in,
Like your gut reaction,
Yeah.
like this is your game, it's right in front of you, you can unpack it, you can read in the leaflet, you can look at the pictures, and you're like, beyond that, the concepts that are involved within the game, which ones are easily memorable and hold a lot of weight to you?
It's like, it's like ability to, I think The Walking Dead is like, maybe it's because I haven't been exposed to other versions, but like I think changed like storytelling for me in a way that's like, I've never felt so personally attached to any other medium I've ever experienced, and that's what I felt was like really important about the game, is the ability to create empathy, I guess, is my big thing. Like I think that's like a huge thing for stories. Like stories are like empathy machines, and like I think gaming is just like so far the best way to experience that. And The Walking Dead The Walking Dead is a prime example of that ability.
I think that's true. It's easily up there as far as one of my favorite experiences, let alone like video game experiences, purely because it was kind of fresh out of the gate for me. So no one expected a licensed game like of anything to elicit such a pretty much universally critically acclaimed response, and such a nuanced story too from everyone involved because of how complex the choice system was, more than people initially thought. Even maybe today, surprising for a lot of video games. That's why it's like one of those landmark games where if people are looking for a compelling story to engage with, it's hard to recommend it because of how attached you will get to the characters and the world and the narrative. Maybe not the world. Their situation's pretty dire, but because such strong emotions come out from like people I've suggested it to consistently, it's definitely a cut above most gameplay or even narrative experiences. And then the fact, I think it's important that you're not even a nameless avatar. So
Yeah.
even then, when you're given like Lee's position, many people embody it, whether or not they're like a woman or a man or even a child or even younger than him, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And that's like another huge aspect I really appreciate about The Walking Dead, is that there was like an idea that like empathy is best with like a nameless avatar, or like your self-made avatar kind of stuff. But I think The Walking Dead proves that like honestly, like a set character has so much more potential just because of all his like own like set of, you know, ideals of history. Like you can relate to those things rather than having a nobody and just doing that. Like, and it also proves that like empathy is possible to like with like people who are completely not like I don't know any of the experiences of like a, you know, like a 30-year-old black man as like a, you know, Asian American person in like in their 20s, early 20s, I guess. But it didn't matter. I could like completely relate to all of what was happening. I could like feel exactly what like I guess Lee was supposed to feel, and that was like incredible to me.
So I wanna elaborate on that feeling because I know what happens. Like,
Sure.
You had a pretty interesting experience too, very like more so than maybe other people who played that game or other games. So what happened? What were those feelings like concluding the experience, or even like rising up to that moment? How
Like
was
that,
it for you?
like that I felt during like the whole thing. It's just, I,
Or maybe just like the final part, you know? How did it conclude? How did everything synthesize or come together?
it was, I don't know. It was like all the choices. Like maybe it's just like I'm really good at suspending disbelief, and which might be a part of it. But like all everything that happened felt just super real. Nothing felt like, oh, this couldn't happen, or like it was like like things. Yeah, things got like just really really real, and I could feel the direness in this situation. Like there's like choices between killing this like this way or that way. Like if you can shape like if you should save somebody or like ignore them. Like those situations, even though it was in a game, it felt like it mattered in that situation, and that was like crazy to me. And it all just elicited such I felt so strongly about like so many things in that game. Um, I guess like what you're talking about, like the last scene. I guess spoiler alert if you haven't played the game, but it's a scene where that's like your last stretch. You're going to like you've just saved Clementine, and you've been bit, so you're like about to be changed, and it was like the last moment where like you're like on your last legs, like struggling to go. Clementine kind of accidentally like traps you guys together, so that if you do turn, or when you do turn, it would be like an awful situation. So it's like a moment where you have to basically teach her to defend herself, and the game does it in such like a, I guess, beautiful way, where like at first there's like another zombie with you in the situation, and then you have to teach her to like not be afraid of that situation itself, and then like you see her do all that stuff, you see her defending herself, like you're trapped in that situation. So when all that happens, you're essentially like seeing her be independent, and it's like an amazing feeling that like that she's gonna like for the most part be okay. And then the time comes when you're gonna have to go, and like I mean, they give you a choice of whether to like ask her to kill you or just like leave you there. I asked her to kill me because I was gonna turn, and like I knew in that situation she'd be more like, she'd have, I guess, better peace of mind knowing that I didn't turn, and she wouldn't see me as a zombie. Like that'd be like heartbreaking, and like those feelings honestly I was like really surprised like how I felt in that situation. Like I was like that whole thing was so heartbreaking. I couldn't do it, but it got like such a real response from me that like after that I thought about like what I would actually do in those situations, and it was just like I don't know, it's just, was that the right call? And ultimately, like after it all, like I was completely satisfied with what happened, just because like all the events led up to how it turned out, and like it and there's another point that I really like about the game is that so a lot of people say it's like an illusion of choice, where the main storyline is essentially the same, which it is for every situation. Like, Clementine's always going to be captured, and like, you'll always, like, someone will always die in certain situations, but like like the small choices you do make matter to each person individually because of like the different minor experiences you have, like, and it showed me like that's what matters, like not the ultimate picture but the things that happen throughout it, I guess. And that I feel like every single person, no matter which individual pathway happened, was like, it ultimately was the right choice for all of them, and that's what's really cool about it, is that even though everyone could have such a different experience, they all felt like, I guess, the same. And it's just really cool. Like, how yeah, just how emotionally attached you can get to a game. It really proved to me that gaming can take storytelling to the next level.
Yeah, in a strong, like in a way that's stronger than even games that came out after. I think The Walking Dead was able to establish an imitation of life's relationships in a very honest way, because like as you said, it's the small things, really. When you're talking to people every day, I mean, there's things just like microaggressions or tension or anxiety, and all those things are funneled in the first playthrough of that game. I think that's something to be noted too, because there's so many different ways to play the game, and in a way, it guides you in the way that you are best fit for the game. So, if anyone is listening to this and hasn't played the game, I think there's something to be said about the expectations, especially because of how acclaimed it is. Because there could be a tendency that the game is not really what you expect, and that's why I advise to be cautious and doing some research before you play this game, because it's not lighthearted in the least. So, what do you think the audience is for a game like this? How can this be recommended to people?
I think honestly, like in a game like this, like the audience is most people, is what I see. Like, yeah, like you mentioned, like since it's such a powerful experience and such a like strong, like I'm gonna say I've never felt such strong sadness in my life before. Like not even real life so far have like matched like its intensity. So it's not exactly like, oh my god, you're like, I want you to play this, so like
Yeah.
but it's like, I guess, an important game, you know? Like it I think it allows people to see like their own like empathy towards other people, or like it allows people to see why like what certain things are important in life, I guess. What's you know It allows people to understand other situations, like like this is a really good situation where you're like a caretaker and you like understand those kind of feelings. So it's really cool, like in that sense. But yeah, but like that kind of experience is like pretty universal. So I think it's really cool that there's not like a direct audience. Like anybody can play this game and can elicit those responses. And so yeah, so I think it's a game that anyone can and should pick up, but like not exactly one I could like recommend, like like Smash or like a Mario game or something like that. It's not like a fun experience, but like an important one. Maybe I would say that it like be wary of like age. Maybe, I don't know, like maybe like teenagers like 13, 14. It might be very like, especially in such a like, what is it, an age where they're so like
Impressionable.
Yeah, impressionable, and just like everything's like big or whatever. It might be a bit too much, maybe. Like I'm not one to say if you're mature enough to whatever, but it just, yeah, I think it might be for a bit of an older crowd, but again, I think it's for most people.
Yeah, I think it's important that you said that it's an important game, because I also think that it's a game that everyone should play, or at least a game that everyone should know about, because in the face of video games as just a hobby or pastime or just simply for entertainment, The Walking Dead, as other but maybe indie games with devoted storytelling, have flown in the face of that tradition, where narrative becomes not just something with happy endings, and reflects more, again, like real life, how the world is situated, what types of complex problems affect the gameplay, and then how the gameplay also affects real life. So on that strand, do you think that this game, that The Walking Dead Season 1, has affected your viewpoint on other games' storytelling mechanics after the fact?
I mean, I guess so, just because, like, I know what games are capable of now, so I kind of set like a huge standard for all like narrative based story games, which isn't a bad thing, you know, but it's like I guess it made like other not less than stellar, but like storytelling games that doesn't like elicit like a huge response. Like I don't have like too much to say about it. Um, like besides like it's a good story or whatever. Um, so I guess that's what's like changed. Like I have like a stricter viewpoint on like great storytelling, I guess.
Did you have a bias in the game before you played it?
I knew what the game was, kind of like I knew it was a choice-based game that would like, and I knew that it was supposed to be sad. But besides that, I didn't really have any other thing. There's like one thing that like I accidentally did to myself was like a lot of people liked oh shoot, what was the name? The
Let's Player? Is it a Let's Player?
no, the character in the game. Oh man, goes to show.
Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny. Oh my god,
Kenny.
I guess it already shows my bias, but like a lot of people loved Kenny and thought he was like, they were like, that's his best friend, and so I kind of went into the game thinking he was gonna be that way. It turns out in my playthrough, I didn't feel that way kind of at all. He was another character, but like a lot of our viewpoints clashed, and like ultimately he did like he was with us, but like there's a lot of key moments where he didn't join my particular journey, or like he didn't like accompany me during these like other points where I didn't feel as connected with him. So that was kind of weird, but other than that, like, but again, that also goes to the fact that like why these different like moments matter. Like different characters were more important to me, which was like fine and stuff like that. Yeah.
I think we've kind of been, you talked about it in the beginning, but we've kind of been playing around this idea. We haven't explicitly discussed it, but the role of Clementine in this entire season, and future seasons that you haven't played yet, but Clementine is also like kind of revolutionary as far as non-playable characters go, because if it wasn't for her, really maybe none of this would matter. She's pretty much the linchpin in all of the emotion that happens. She like begins and ends it all. So how did Clementine change you as a person, and what kind of relationship did you have with her, if you had one long lasting at all? I'm gonna assume you do though.
Yeah. It's because in the story you're like you become her caretaker because her parents, I guess, died in the whole start of the apocalypse, so she's like kind of left alone, and you find her and like you take care of her, and like that's like the basis of it.
Well, I think it should be noted that we don't know,
or
like,
I guess it's not like explicit.
That's her motivation through the story, to find her parents.
Yeah.
Too. So you're like adopted. You adopt her out of her own safety.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out a plan in the apocalypse.
I mean, I think when I was playing through it, I kind of knew that her parents were probably dead, but it was like, I had to give her some kind of hope, I guess. And that was like an interesting dynamic too, like balancing lying and telling the truth. Because the way they made her character is that, and what I really appreciate about Clementine is that even though she's a child, like she's not dumb, like she's very smart. So like she understands like when you're lying or when like things are happening,
or when to steal,
or when to like do very specific things, and like, which is really great. And that's the thing about this character, which is I think like part of the revolutionary thing, is that a lot of times like different stories, when they have like, a character you need to protect, they become like nuisances, because like they're impeding like your natural progression, I guess. But like in this story, she becomes like, you protect her because you want to, not because like you have to, kind of, because of the relationship you make. And like different key moments in the story, even though I guess you can say it's scripted. It's like it shows that like she can do stuff on her own kind of stuff, and like a lot of the efforts you put in feel real, like just stuff like where you teach her how to do certain things and then she does it in the game. um, so it's like this like response, like I call and response with this character, like I feel like naturally makes you closer because you feel like the effort you put into this character is becoming like validated because she's like growing, I guess. So that helps with the attachment and why the last scene is such like a potent moment. Yeah, I don't know. This game makes me ramble.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had a different Clementine. Like, essentially, we all had the same person in different ways, which is such a talented thing for a Telltale scripting team to have and write about. Because you don't, these aren't characters that you get, like, these are characters that never happen, that haven't ever been expected in video games usually for a long time. The only similar one I could maybe talk about is what's that girl's name in The Last of Us? Yeah. I'm blanking on her name right now, but her, and then also what's her name? Also the NPC in your partner in BioShock Infinite. Also. So there's been a good pattern of these characters existing more, and I think that it should be noted how powerful the writing really is in this game, because we can say all the time that it is just scripted, but for a choice-based game, there's so many different avenues of thought that you can go to, and there's always the risk of losing your audience's attention or believability. That's even worse in a game such as this. And then another thing to note is that the gameplay is not so complicated.
Yeah.
So how would you argue that this is a game compared to maybe some more traditional ways that we expect games to be? And is it important that it's still a video game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the essential part of a game is just like the interactivity. I think the fact that you interact at all, like with the environment as a character, like talking to people, like physically going to a place in order to talk to someone.
Oh, Elizabeth.
Or
That's the one in BioShock.
Yeah.
I'll interrupt again when I remember. Continue.
Like Ellie or something.
Ellie, yeah, it's Ellie. Ellie in The Last of Us. There you go. NPCs are memorable.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting at. But yeah, continue.
But shoot, what was I saying?
About games being interactive.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I would argue it's a game just because like you're still an active participant in the whole thing, because this, even though it's like through a third character, like a different character, it's still like you moving around, you talking to these people, and like you making the choice to either not talk to someone or talk to someone, making the choice to save someone or not save someone. That like explicit choice makes it like, that's what makes it a game, and why it makes it like such a different experience in like other types of media. Like this just doesn't work as like a movie, because like in a movie the choice is presented, like the character has to choose one or the other, but the burden isn't on you, it's still on the character, and you just get to see what happens and then you see the consequence of it. While here you explicitly have to choose which one, and after doing that, and then you experience yourself the consequence, because let's say one of the characters happen to be like a really good like navigator or whatever, and then like later in the story you get lost, so you get a question like, oh, maybe I should have saved her or something. So yeah, a lot of the emotional turmoil and burden is put on you as a character, like you as a player, which I think what makes the difference, and why I think it's a game. And the reason why I think it's important that people realize it's a game is so that like, I don't know, gaming itself can be legitimized, I guess, as a medium of like storytelling and art. Because like for some reason, I mean not for some reason, but like these people still, I think, have a bias that games are like childish, or games are, you know, it's just for like wasting time. When, you know, stories like these as a game are again like important. So recognizing it's a game is like an important step in legitimizing gaming as a respectable art form.
Yeah, yeah. I think in the wake of maybe less stellar games dealing with choice, like you were talking about how making a choice in this game is a burden. Like,
Yeah.
it's heavy. Some of the choices you make, it's literally life and death between some of the characters that you choose whether or not to see them again, and that's very hard for a game to suspend that amount of disbelief into. But again, it's just the strength of the writing, and in lieu of some other games that maybe had a falsity, a farce of choice, like Fable maybe, or morality based games where it's just between good and evil and the choices don't really last long with the player. The Walking Dead makes it about survival and about the integrity of human compassion in certain situations. Sometimes you're forced to really, like, when you're forced into a corner, you have to make some choices about how you're going to set up how you're going to get out if you're trapped. There's one specific scene in a barn where I don't want to spoil that specifically if some people haven't played it, because I think
we just have like a spoiler.
Yeah, there'll be a spoiler alert on this. I mean, we already talked about the ending, but you know, in between all of that, there are very important moments where you are surprised, like you were thrown for a loop, and you have to really think about what you're going to do, because they're time-sensitive events, and put into that situation, it really gets that feeling just right. You were talking about how interactivity, the agency of the player legitimizes this game as a video game. I would also agree with that, because when in the years after this release, Gone Home and Stanley Parable came out, and they were easily listed off as like walking simulators, even though they were nominated for like indie game royalty. But it's something in the history of video games that should be discussed, I think, because essentially The Walking Dead is a talking and walking simulator. You just click. There's very little command you have in combat, even. Like, you're not put into those situations too often. But even then, it's still integrated very well into the plot of why there is a sense of urgency, or why you're in certain places even though it's more dangerous than others. And then I guess just a couple of wrap-up questions to conclude this discussion. You said you're aware that there's a season 2, and then an upcoming season 3, right?
Yeah.
And there's also the Michonne little like side chapter thing. You're in an interesting position because you haven't played the second season yet. So are you going to play the second season? And then, like, if you are or aren't, what are some of your thoughts about that decision?
I'm at like the same position I was at like before I played the first Walking Dead, where it's like, oh, I do want to play it, but I know for the first season, I didn't know the emotional toll, and I just was afraid of it, and I was right to be afraid of it because it was huge. But now I do know exactly not exactly, but like approximately what I will feel, and now I'm even more afraid of it. So, because I know The Walking Dead season 2 is gonna be like, I guess, I don't know about but like just as like emotionally impactful or draining or whatever you want to say. All right. Yeah, exactly. And I desperately want to know more of the story, but again, this is like so much different than like watching the next season of like the TV show Walking Dead, because it's you experiencing it. Like, it's so easy to watch other people like struggle. It's so easy to just like see a person do something like on TV, or like and think like, oh, I would have done something different, or like, you know, or like just the consequences don't matter to you because it's you see it and the actions happen. But in a game where the consequences directly affect you as a player, like honestly, it's terrifying. Like to have such like choices are hard, and The Walking Dead really shows that. Like it's not easy to choose between like either you know yeah like saving like this one guy's child versus another guy's child. Like what makes you, which one's like is the limit? And that's what's like crazy about this game is that it like I think it's a really good self-reflecting game to show like what matters to you and what like it kind of exposes like what you think about like the world or what's important, whatever, which is really cool. So yeah, that's what I'm just like. I know how crazy the next game is gonna be, and I'm like super scared. Hopefully I will eventually play. Like I hope there's gonna be some moment where I'm like, I'm just gonna play it, or like someone pushes me to be like, just play it. I'm like, all right. So I know when I start, I will stop it, but I'm just afraid, just because. Also know that you play as Clementine, which might be kind of funny, but like it's gonna be weird because I'm playing as a character that I like took care of, and now I get to have experiences. I don't know. It's peculiar.
I can, as someone who's played through second season and anticipating the third, I can say that yes, it's as hard. Maybe yes, there are definitely moments where you can argue it is going to be harder to play, but I think maybe all the more necessary, seeing as that people have very strong connections to these characters. And also, it's just the nature of the Walking Dead universe is just the stakes are.
Yeah.
They can't be higher. Like not only do you have to worry about just not dying, but also you're not even really living. You're just surviving the entire time. You're constantly looking for food or for shelter or for people, or not looking for people, or looking for a weapon, or looking for light, and just all those things that you wouldn't even consider in an environment, which I think as a video game it does very powerfully. And I do have a lot of personal investment in the other types of media, mostly the graphic novels, rather than the TV show, where the TV show, as far as I know, is doing pretty excellent. So just to wrap this all up, like, do you have any, what would you say to people before they play this game, and what would you say to them after they play this game?
I mean, before playing the game, I don't know if I would like really say anything. I feel like saying anything would either put too much of a like wall between them, maybe, cause like the thing is, this game can be played like stupidly, I guess. Like, cause like if you take yourself out of it and be like, oh, this is a game, it doesn't matter, then the game's not gonna be like as, because I remember like there's a dorm mate of mine from like last year who talked about how like when he watched me play, like he says he knows he's not gonna play that way, like because he knows it's a game, he would make choices that are like I guess trolly, for lack of better words, or he would like purposely kill someone because like he just would think it was funny or something like that. And like I would want to desperately say to the person, like, yeah, suspend your disbelief, like put yourself in there, but like if they could take my word for it, like they need to pretend that it's real, I guess, because that's the only way to really experience it. But you can't like, there's like situations where you like would kill someone, it's like it's not a funny situation, like, you can't just be like, haha, this is gonna happen. So I guess if like they would take me seriously, I would say, yeah, suspend your disbelief, put yourself into it. It's okay to pretend it's real. Like, it's okay that you think a game is real. Like, it happens. And like after the fact, I guess I would just like to discuss like how they felt or why they felt this way. Like how they felt about like each character, like just all the different details about the game that make their experiences unique and memorable, um, and just talk about like why they made those choices, just to like discuss. Um, that's the cool thing about Walking Dead is like I want. That's another reason why I want more people to play it, so I can talk about it with more people. Like it's just a, I don't know if fun's the right word, but like overall fun experience to just like have all this, um, you know, this like roller coaster of emotion that you could just. I want to talk to other people about how they felt about it, I guess, and just see why,
Yeah. Yeah. I think despite it all, The Walking Dead, despite how harrowing and incredibly heavy the story will feel, it is handled with like such grace and sensitivity. I guess that's maybe bridging that word sensitivity, that allows conversations about it to happen after, and because it's so rich and the universe is so full, there's so many different like details that affect the outcomes, that you can eventually discuss as consequences or conclusions to draw and speculate, especially because they're still making more parts of it. It's very much like a serial drama, like on television, where you play episodically. Also, that's probably important to mention. It's like divided up into chapters, so you could take breaks. You don't have to like force yourself to play it all at once. That might be like too much to get into right away. But in all, yeah, the Walking Dead video game is still by far one of the most memorable video game experience I've had as well. So yeah, I think, yeah, right on the money. More people should play this game. And then also, I think just last comment on this game, in my opinion, you get out what you put in this game.
Yeah.
You invest yourself, and you follow these characters, and you trust them, and you trust the gameplay, and you'll come out with something you don't expect, something that you can, the raw material that you can refine on your own and make it change you. It did change me as a person, like very few games have ever. So it's cool that you were able to have that experience like a year later and still remember all of those events. And then just like as a side note, the way that Brian played it, I know, was just a pretty unique experience, because it was like a serial drama, because a bunch of dorm mates, like as he already talked about, were watching it, including myself. Like I suggested that he should play this game, and then we just projected it and everyone was watching, and it included like so many people who hadn't thought, like maybe also had the same minimal expectations of the game. And so when it was finished, like we saw Brian's story like conclude, and then I don't know if you wanna talk about like what happened like after, but like
I mean, it was just like, you mean just like me going outside and stuff? Like it just, after all of it happened, like I touched on it before, how it was like the strongest emotional experience I've ever experienced. Like I had to go outside, and I was just like pacing, and like my hands were like physically shaking for like the longest time, because like even though it was a game, like I told Clementine to like shoot me and like basically end my life, and that kind of like, it's like holy crap, like as a person who's like this is getting a little like really deep, but I'm personally very afraid of dying. Death is extremely terrifying to me. So when this happened, it was just like that's what I would have done like in that situation, and it was just it was so scary, and like I was so shaken. Like I had the privilege of not actually experiencing that, because I'm still here talking about it. Yeah. But it was just like, it was like the shock, I couldn't talk normally for like a good like like maybe 30 minutes, like my entire body was shaking. It was crazy. Which is why I still have like very strong memories of this game, and I guess why it's my favorite game. Like I don't think any other game I can really remember as vividly, which is great. I think like this game is great. Yeah, yeah. It was just like a side note too. It was just like a funny thing when I was playing through it too, because like it was like a sort of mini let's play, because like all the dormants were watching it, and it admittedly it kind of took away from it a bit, because like some people have played it and said some things that are like kind of spoilery, but overall it was like, yeah, it was a really good experience, and like I would do it again, for sure. Yeah, it just it set the bar really high for narrative games, like for sure. And honestly, this is like the kind of, I think Walking Dead may have like influenced me in wanting to make narrative based games, because I always known I wanted to make games of some kind, but I didn't really know what kind. It was just kind of like a generic idea, but like realizing what games can do to people, especially with this, I want to be the one to like allow that experience to other people as well, which is cool. There's never not enough, you know, good experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. It was what a trip. It was just like after you left the dorm, we just all like stopped for a second, watched the credits roll, and then like clapped. Like it was one of those, like, you can't, like, no one talked. That was the thing. When you left, no one talked.
Yeah.
And everyone was just like, there was a silent agreement and acceptance that everything was over. And it was sad too, because like there was no more of this great story, I guess, for the time being, but there was no more Lee. As far as we knew then, there was no more Clementine, and it all was able to wrap up. Like that was scary. And then we all went outside, and then like it was just like, this is insane. This is a video game. A very unique experience for sure, which is another, like, maybe the golden reason why it makes this game so easy to recommend. But yeah, thanks for telling me about your favorite game.
Yeah, of course.
All right, see you in the next favorite game.